From Australia, this is VK1WIA and the weekly WIA amateur radio news service on RF, internet streaming and text at wia.org.au.
Yes, you've done it. You've tuned WIA in the National News Service for week commencing May 24, 2020. Technical news from Australia this week includes a report on our disastrous 2019-20 bushfire season. Mobile network outages during the bushfires were overwhelmingly due to loss of power rather than fire damage, according to a report prepared by the ACMA with assistance from the Communications Alliance and the Australian Mobile Telecommunications Association. At one point, 150 mobile base stations across New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia were off the air and more than 20,000 NBN services disrupted. The report shows that the average length of an outage incident was 3.5 days. Temporary facilities such as generators, cells on wheels and satellite cells on wheels were deployed, these to restore services in more than a third of cases. As previously reported here on WIA National News, the federal government has announced $37.1 million in funding, the funding to bolster mobile network resilience, including provision of more backup power, backhaul redundancy and satellite communications. ARDN in Australia. But what is ARDN? The ARDN acronym stands for Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network, and it provides a way for amateur radio operators to create high-speed ad hoc data networks for use in emergency and service-orientated communications. Joining us now, David, VK1WIA.
An ARDN network is able to serve as the transport mechanism for the preferred applications people rely upon to communicate with each other in the normal course of their business and social interactions, including email, chat, phone service, document sharing, video conferencing, and many other useful programs. Depending on the characteristics of the ARDN implementation, this digital data network can operate at near internet speeds with many kilometres between network nodes. The primary goal of the ARDN project is to empower licensed amateur radio operators to quickly and easily deploy high-speed data networks when and where they might be needed as a service to both the hobby and the community. This is especially important in cases where traditional utility services, electricity, phone lines or internet services become unavailable. In those cases, an off-grid amateur radio emergency data network may be a lifeline for communities impacted by a local disaster. ARDN has grown strongly internationally, especially in the US and Europe, many other countries, but here in Australia, it's been very quiet. So we're a small but enthusiastic group of amateur radio operators, and we've been slowly working together to develop an ARDN Australian mesh. And we have connections from the Gold Coast to Canberra, Hervey Bay in Queensland, and also to our friends in New Zealand, US and South Africa. If you're interested in ARDN and you'd like to become part of the project or just ask any questions or maybe even operate a node here in VK, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact the group at VK4PUP at VK4PUP.com or connect with us via Facebook. And our Facebook page is ARDN Enthusiasts Australia, and you can probably find the URL best on the WIA text edition. 73s from David, VK4PUP on the Gold Coast.
Thanks, David. Now, new on-the-air podcast now available. Q News, the VK4 Club News Service, and the weekly of He Who Thinks, VK4 ZPP, available as a podcast. Where do you get it? This WIA News Service, We'll tell you where. And when do we get it? Hot on the heels of last week's announcement from your WIA, it would appear 60 metres moves closer to us here in VK. These and more items of interest, including Lee MOYLE, WIA Director, coming your way from VK1WIA, where we at the National WIA News Desk were saddened to hear recently of the passing of Tim, VK2ZTM. Tim headed up the VK2WIA News and had started on preparation for a New South Wales news crew to do a couple of weeks of this, the national news, much like the VK7WI crew have done the last 2 weeks.
It is with great sadness that we record the passing of Timothy Mills, VK2ZTM, on Friday the 8th of May 2020 at the age of 80. Tim was a board member and life member of Amateur Radio New South Wales. It is hard to overstate the impact of Tim's long involvement in amateur radio. From the early 1960s until today, Tim volunteered in countless roles. On the committee of the New South Wales division of the WIA, including some time as president, on the committee of WISN, the VHF group, and more recently, on the board of Amateur Radio New South Wales. There are very few people in the Australian amateur radio community who would not have made some contact with Tim. His tireless support and encouragement of amateur radio over the past 60 years will long be remembered. Vale Tim Mills, VK2ZTM.
The memorial service for Tim was held last Monday, May 17. Due to the current COVID restrictions, this regrettably was an invitation-only service. However, it was available via a video online service. Back before Anzac Day 2020 on WIA front page news, Greg Kelly, VK2GPK, the WIA director, typed, "The new issue of AR magazine has been delayed due to unforeseen circumstances. We hope to have it published soon. WIA apologises to members for any inconvenience and appreciates their continued support." Last week in our news service from your WIA, and again thanks to Justin and the entire VK7 News crew for providing the past couple of weeks, well, he had WIA Vice President Aidan VK4 APM on air, who explained the delay in a little more detail.
As has been mentioned previously, the latest version of AR got stuck in a COVID-19 vortex that required substantial alteration to deal with the many events, including our AGM and conference, that have been postponed, altered or cancelled. The delayed edition will be released by the end of May with updated information regarding the AGM and conference.
From Australia, this is VK1WIA and the weekly WIA amateur radio news service on RF, internet streaming and text at wia.org.au.
Hi, I am Lee MOYLE, VK3GK, and as a new WIA board member, thought I would give a little of my history to the members and listeners. I'm married to my very supportive wife Joanne and have 3 young adult children, 2 sons, 24 and 22, and a 19-year-old daughter, and currently residing in Narre Warren South in Victoria. For the last 24 years, my wife and I have successfully managed our own company, Normac Labels Australia, which manufactures high-performance industrial labels. Established initially from home in a bedroom in 1996, then expanded into the garage, but more recently relocated to a small 350 square metre factory in 2017. My exposure to radio and the magic of the ether was when I was 10 years old with a pair of walkie-talkies. This morphed into CB radio in the late 70s, and then shortly after a chance meeting at the Clayton Post Office with Ken Gillespie, VK3GK, SK, when I was around 15 or 16 years old. When he asked me, "Are they QSL cards you are posting?" How did he know? And so I was about to be introduced to the fascination of amateur radio. With Ken's help and mentorship, I studied and passed my novice in 1980 as VK3VNA, then shortly after gained my full call in 1981 as VK3DTA, and now as VK3GK from 1983, in memory of my mentor and good friend Ken Gillespie. I'm sure many listeners will remember Ken, VK3GK. He was the WIA VK3AOM Museum Station volunteer where I spent many, many hours. I often got reminded at Hamfest even today who Ken was. 37 years later, it usually goes like, VK3GK, you know that was Ken Gillespie's call sign? And I normally respond, yes it was, and continue to tell them the story. I'm sure many can relate to similar experiences, and yes, I'm even guilty of doing it myself to others too. Amateur radio has led me into a career in radio and electronics as a qualified radio technician with Philips TMC in Clayton, Victoria, for 10 years. Next, I found myself as a sales engineer with Marconi Instruments and then GEC Electronics, which was the catalyst that led me to start my own label manufacturing company in the late 90s. However, from day one, I've always been very passionate and active in all things amateur radio. As a long-time member of the WIA and as WIA assessor for over 13 years, and now migrating to AMC with the new exam structure earlier this year. I'm currently and have been the president of the MDRC, Moorabbin District Radio Club, for the last 3 years, and vice president for 2 years prior. Around 1998, I was also president of the MDRC for about 6 years' duration. I currently am an active member of GGREC, Gippsland Gate Radio and Electronics Club, NERG, North East Radio Group, and EMDRC, Eastern Mountain District Radio Club. In 2015, I travelled to my first Dayton Hamvention in Ohio and sat my USA Amateur Radio exams. And now I am the holder of US Extra Class Licence NE3M. I'm also a certified ARRL VE, Volunteer Examiner, and routinely conduct USA exams on behalf of the ARRL and FCC. Through VEA, Volunteer Examiners Australia, the exams are usually held every 3 months here in Victoria and other states. With the VEA team, currently about 30 assessors and growing of USA and VK AMC examiners. I've been part of the organisation team of the MDRC Hamfest, renowned as the largest in VK3 for the last 20 years or so, and in recent times have committed to travel to overseas Hamfests and conventions. I'm an attendee to both Dayton Hamvention in Ohio and Tokyo Ham Fair in Japan, as well as APDXC in Osaka, and have already committed to all 3 conventions in 2020, which some have now been rescheduled to late 2020 and 2021. These trips have enabled me to meet with directors and executives of ARRL, JARL, RSGB, DARC, REST, PARA, MARL, IARU, etc., and can only enhance my value to the WIA membership as a WIA director. I'm an avid DX chaser, contester and DXpeditioner. I've been on several very successful DXpeditions in the past few years: VK9NT, YJ0VK, A35RT, VK9XI, VK9CI, and recently Tokelau ZK3A and Samoa 5W0GK. I'm an active Rotarian at Cranbourne Rotary Club and can see my DXpeditioning and Rotary as a mutual benefit to the communities I visit. Both Tonga and Tokelau are perfect examples. I've also operated as VI2R when Rotary International had their conference in Sydney a few years ago, which highlights the 2x1 call sign debate is in reality nothing new, as they have been issued before by ACMA. So the big question, which I have been asked many, many times recently: why did I volunteer to be on the WIA board? 7 threes from Lee, and we'll see you on air.
Yep, why indeed, Lee. We'll find out, just like we heard a few weeks back from another of our 3 new directors, Philip Shields, VK2 CPR, the why. That's next week here on WIA National News.
International News. I'm Jason, VK2LAW. We begin this week with news from the IARU. The IARU WRC19 team recognised. The IARU Region 1 President reports members of the IARU team involved in WRC19 have been recognised by the Radio Society of Great Britain in a recent awards announcement. On the IARU Region 1 site, Don Beattie, Golf 3 Bravo Juliet, writes, "At the annual RSGB AGM, some of the more significant recognition awards are normally presented, recognising exceptional contribution to aspects of the Society's work or to amateur radio. The IARU team have been awarded the RSGB Founders Trophy, which is awarded for outstanding service to the Society. Additionally, the Harold Rose Plate, which is awarded for outstanding contribution to 50 MHz, was awarded to David Court, Golf 3 Sierra Delta Lima / Echo India 3 India Oscar, IARU's 50 MHz project manager at WRC19, for securing the 50 MHz band for the amateur service in Region 1. News from the UK. 77 5G and other masts torched. Business Insider report that a conspiracy theory that baselessly links 5G technology with the coronavirus has led to a series of arson attacks on cell phone towers in the UK. The conspiracy theory began to gain traction in late March and early April, coinciding with the rising number of cases in the country and its nationwide lockdown. Conspiracies around phone signals have existed for years, however. The scaremongering is thought to have led directly to arson attacks on mobile phone infrastructure. At the same time, police in Quebec, Canada, have arrested a man and woman and charged them with setting an array of 7 fires at various telecommunications towers, according to a report by the CBC. The Canadian fires come on the heels of tower fires being set in Holland, England and the United States. Most of the towers have been 5G cell phone towers. News from Russia. Uber to the moon. Russian agency Roscosmos have customers inking deals for continued rides to the ISS. With lingering uncertainty about when new US commercial vehicles can regularly carry crews to the space station, NASA will pay the Russian space agency more than $90 million for a round-trip ticket to the International Space Station on a Soyuz spacecraft later this 2020 year. According to NASA, the deal with Roscosmos, Russia's space agency, will ensure continuous US presence on the ISS in case of additional delays in getting new US crew capsules ready for operational missions. To the USA for our final international news story this week. The CQ Amateur Radio Hall of Fame has 7 new members for 2020. This brings to 333 the total number of members inducted since the Hall's establishment in 2001. The CQ Amateur Radio Hall of Fame honours those individuals, whether licensed hams or not, who have made significant contributions to amateur radio, and those amateurs who have made significant contributions either to amateur radio, to their professional careers, or to some other aspect of life on our planet. The 2020 inductees included Chet Atkins, Whiskey 4 Charlie Golf Papa Silent Key, legendary musician known as Mr. Guitar and music producer, ushered in the Nashville sound on RCA Records. Les Barclay, Golf 3 Hotel Tango Foxtrot Silent Key, propagation expert, leader of International Telecommunication Union propagation study groups, and chairman of the ITU's first Radio Communication Assembly in 1993, top official in the UK's Telecommunication Regulatory Agency. George Laura, Kilo 4 Hotel Zulu Echo Silent Key, developer of the UPC, Universal Product Code or barcode on merchandise, permitting items at stores to be scanned on checkout rather than manually rung up. And Sultan Qaboos bin Sayed, Alpha 41 Alpha Alpha Silent Key, Sultan of Oman, from 1970 to 2020, transformed his impoverished country into a modern and prosperous state with influence throughout the Middle East. For WIA National News, in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
From Australia, this is VK1WIA and the weekly WIA amateur radio news service on RF, internet streaming and text at wia.org.au.
AM Radio Operational News. It's a contact sport. I'm Felix, VK4FUQ. May 30-31, the CQ Worldwide WPX contest for amateurs worldwide to contact as many amateurs and prefixes as possible during the contest using CW. This key event for CW enthusiasts is a 48-hour contest, and single operators may operate 36 of the 48 hours. Activities on 160, 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metres, and the exchange is an RST report and a progressive contact serial number. The VK Shires June long weekend, which is a weekend June 6 and 7. SKN Winter Edition on Sunday 14 June. The winter edition of the New Zealand Straight Key Night will take place 8 to 9 p.m. on Sunday the 14th of June. As usual, this casual contest will be held on 80 metres, and operators must use a straight key, no bugs, paddles or sideswipers. SKN exchange, which includes the type of key and the type of transmitter, but this time there will be an extra challenge. The QSY rule. I strongly urge you to get familiar with it. If you don't, well, I think it will be a bit like driving on the wrong side of the road and wondering why everybody else is tooting their horn. Find out more about SKN, including the QSY rule, at the link we're liking the text edition of this WIA National News. Neil Sanderson, ZL1NZ, is the SKN manager here in the Tasman Bubble. IAAU World Championship July 13-14. Trans-Tasman Low Band Contest. Next contest 17 July, and has the aim of encouraging low band activity between VK and ZL on 160, 80 and 40 metres, using SSB, CW and RTTY or PSK. RD or Remembrance Day contest will be August 15-16. Now the 2019 WIA contest champion. Here is VK2 PR, Peter.
Sorry, Felix, it's Graham here, not Peter, who dropped me the text edition, and he's flat out at the moment, so I'll do my best. WIA contest champion results for 2019, and the Peter Brown Trophy It's awarded annually for the best combined effort in WIA-sponsored contests, recognising those who've participated in multiple WIA contests and submitted logs throughout the year. Now the winner for 2019 is Laurie, VK5LJ, with a score of 540 points. Laurie entered 6 out of the 9 eligible contests and won first place in the John MOYLE, Harry Angel and VK Shires contests, and second place in the RD, Oceania CW and Trans-Tasman contests. And by the way, Laurie also won the 2018 Peter Brown Trophy. Second place went to Brendan, VK3MH, with a score of 368, and third to Alan Shannon, VK4SN, with 344 points. Read this week's text edition for more winners and grinners and the link we like to the full story. Back to you, Felix.
Thanks, Graham. All major Australian contest rules and results are on the contest section of the WIA website. For VK1WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ Inningham.
From Australia, this is VK1WIA and the weekly WIA amateur radio news service on RF, internet streaming and text at wia.org.au.
Taking a look at wireless weather, the deep solar minimum is feared. Forbes magazine reports a deep solar minimum is feared as 2020 sees record-setting 100-day slump. Jamie Carter writes, while we on Earth suffer from coronavirus, our star, the Sun, is having a lockdown all of its own. Spaceweather.com reports that already there have been 100 days in 2020 when our Sun has displayed 0 sunspots. That makes this year the second consecutive year of a record-setting low number of sunspots. So, are we in an eternal sunshine of the spotless kind? Media Watch and a new On The Air podcast now available. The latest episode of the On The Air podcast, episode 5, focuses on the various types of modulation and tips on Go kits. The On The Air podcast is a monthly companion to On The Air magazine, ARRL's magazine for beginner to intermediate ham radio operators. Q News, the VK4 Club News service and weekly of He Who Thinks, VK4ZPP, is also available as a podcast. Just make sure it's the ham radio Q News you subscribe to. Of course, Q News is heard across VK4 straight after this weekly WIA news broadcast. Where do you get it? This national news from the WIA is available by 0400 UTC Saturday from our ongoing podcast site and at wia.org.au. Now, this is where all stations should be downloading their news for retransmission. There is a backup site as well, and it would appear a lot of relay stations are using the backup as primary. And that's where last week many relays had a problem and did not retransmit WIA national news. In fact, some started the news segment with the local Q News first, then silence. So please use the backup site as just that, a backup.
Time now for Worldwide Special Interest Group News. Hello, I'm Col, VK3GTV, and there's quite a bit to get through this week, so let's kick it off with 5 megahertz. 60 metres moves closer here in VK. ACMA have produced an opinions paper on amateur use of the 60-metre band, and the paper proposes various options for sharing of the band between amateur and commercial users. As we've reported via WIA over the past weeks, ACMA are calling for comments on the paper, which close on Friday, June 19th. Your WIA has been monitoring and collating over the past months. Remember, European and US amateur stations are regularly heard in VK on FT8 and CW at dusk and into the evening, so our exciting times are becoming closer to a final outcome. As always, a considered response to this latest ACMA paper, which WIA VP Aidan has been briefing us on, will be submitted on your behalf to ACMA. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, CW. WIA National News seems to have lost this and last month's FIST emailed newsletter, but not to worry. Good news is on the way. Navigating the COVID vortex, we see on their website that, like your WIA, the bulk of services are provided by unpaid volunteers, so it will still be provided with updates regularly. It would appear that the only things FIST needs money for are the domain name and web hosting, club call sign, consumer affairs fees and reimbursement of volunteers' expenses, postage, printing, etc. But best of all, Fists Down Under finances are covered for about 15 plus years, so they're asking, please do not send them any money. Whilst the intention is appreciated, Fists say that they cannot accept donations. The Fists Down Under Incorporated Committee has now resolved to place all paid renewals on hold indefinitely. That's right, membership will be free for the foreseeable future. The committee will monitor expenditure and bank balance closely and will reopen paid subscriptions if and when required. In the meantime, it's business as usual, but without annual fees. And no donations, please. Where to next? Fists Committee resolved to promote and fund 3 exciting initiatives. 1. A grant of $200 to Julie, VK3FOWL, and Joe Gonzalez, VK3YSP, and their program to promote and encourage amateur radio and Morse code for youth. 2. An awards program to encourage more hand-sent, ear-copied activity on Morse code. And 3. A grants program to encourage radio clubs to establish and expand the reverse beacon network in Australia. Worldwide Special Interest Group, Police. To celebrate the 70th anniversary of the International Police Association, German radio amateurs of the IPA Radio Club will be active as DL70 IPA, with the main activity between August 2nd and 6th. November 7th on CW and 8th on SSB, IPARC Contest 2020 and various weekends. Therefore, QSOs will be on CW and SSB every Sunday starting August 2nd from 0800 UTC until 1000 UTC on 7080 kHz plus or minus QRM. They'll also try 20 metres if the conditions are okay. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Old-Timers. Showing just how much they care and their appreciation of members, the ARRL Board of Directors recently voted to create a special life membership opportunity for individuals who are at least 70 years of age. Starting on June 1st, the Life 70 Plus membership will be available to hams who have turned 70 and have a combined 25 years of paid annual ARRL membership. Life 70 Plus members receive all the benefits of an annual membership, including their choice of print magazine delivery, QST or on the air, digital access to these publications, plus the digital versions of QEX and National Contest Journal. In addition, each Life 70 Plus member will receive a Life Member pin and a window decal and may purchase an exclusive Life Member plug. Special Interest Groups, Summits on the Air. The SOTA global community has lost an influential and well-respected leader in Portugal to COVID-19. Pedro Carvalho, CT1DBS, Association Manager for the SOTA program in Portugal, became silent key after spending nearly 2 months in the intensive care unit in Lisbon. Pedro is credited with implementing major changes to the Portuguese SOTA program and was a vocal defender of amateurs' access to the 2-metre band, which had faced a takeover. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, YOTA, Youngsters on the Air, Young Transmitters New Zealand Net. Thomas ZL3TOM reminds us of a net we've spoken of previously, which runs Mondays at 7 p.m. New Zealand local time and is accessible via IRLP 9556, Echolink 256883, All-Star 48820 and 40452. Don't worry if you didn't catch all those numbers, as all the details are in the text edition of this news broadcast at wia.org.au. And with all the isolation happening recently, it's not uncommon to hear something along the lines of,
I'm bored. What can I do, Mum?
Well, here's a great suggestion when the kids start getting bored around the house. Check out NASA's STEM engagement page. With activities sorted by age group, there's plenty of fun parents and kids can enjoy on their own or together. It's all on nasa.gov/STEM. Also available from the European Space Agency is a series of weekly projects and challenges that now run through to September. And that's it for Worldwide Special Interest Group News for this week. I'm Col, VK3GTV.
Well, there we be, the end of WIA National News for another week. From the studios here in Jimboomba. As we go, I'd like to thank Justin and the 7 News crew for handling the WIA National News over the past couple of weeks. Till next we meet, I'm Graham, VK4, Baker. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been VK1WIA and the weekly WIA amateur radio news service. On RF, we thank our rebroadcast team and you for listening. And remember, internet streaming and text of this news is available 24/7 at wia.org.au.